Engineers figured out solutions decades before the world was ready. They built car technology the public was not ready to pay for, trust, or understand. These features disappeared for 30, 40, even 50 years before coming back. Stick around because number 7 will shock you. In 1933, San Francisco inventor Brooks Walker rolled out a car feature so bold it looked like magic. Tucked beneath the trunk of a Packard sedan, Walker's parked car prototype hid a secret weapon, a fifth wheel ready to drop down and lift the rear axle at the pull of a lever. With a gentle hydraulic push, the entire back end floated sideways, making parallel parking effortless, even in the tightest spots. The demonstration wowed onlookers and drew headlines, but the reality was less convenient. The device chewed up precious trunk space, added $175 to the price, about a quarter of a new car's cost at the time, and left buyers uneasy about potential breakdowns. Despite a working prototype and a full patent filed in 1935, the fifth wheel never made it to production. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, dismissed as a costly oddity. Yet the core idea, taking the stress out of parking, would resurface decades later in the form of electronic auto park systems, proving that Walker's mechanical marvel was simply too far ahead of its time. In 1966, Cadillac engineers set their sights on winter comfort and introduced a feature that felt like science fiction: electrically heated seats in the Fleetwood. Then strips of nichrome wire tucked into the seat foam, warmed up at the turn of a dial, option C39 on the order sheet. The idea was simple: no more shivering on cold mornings, just a gentle, even heat spreading through the leather. But the reality proved trickier. Early adopters discovered that moisture could trigger short circuits, and the thought of a smoldering seat made some buyers nervous. Fewer than 12% of Fleetwoods left the factory with the heated seat option that year. Cadillac's own patent, filed in 1970, detailed the system's clever thermostatic control, but reliability remained a sticking point. The extra cost didn't help either. For decades, heated seats faded from showrooms, dismissed as a luxury too risky for most. Only after the arrival of safer carbon fiber pads and tighter safety standards in the 1990s did the idea finally take hold. Now it is nearly impossible to find a modern luxury car without heated seats. Cadillac's engineers weren't wrong, they were just early. At the 1956 GM Motorama, Buick unveiled the Centurion concept, a car that looked like it had driven straight out of tomorrow. But it wasn't just the sweeping glass canopy or the wild red body that stunned the crowd. In place of the traditional rearview mirror, a small Vidicon camera peeked out from the rear bumper, sending a live image through coaxial cable to a 5-inch cathode ray tube mounted in the dashboard. For the first time, a driver could check behind the car by glancing at a screen instead of a mirror. The idea was dazzling, but the hardware was enormous. The camera alone was the size of a lunchbox, and the dash display needed heavy, power-hungry electronics borrowed from early television sets. No production car could spare the space, weight, or cost. The Centurion's video vision system never left the show floor, shelved as an engineer's fantasy. Yet the seed was planted. More than 60 years later, rear-view cameras are not just convenient, they are required by law, mandated on all new cars in the United States as of 2018. Buick stylists weren't dreaming. They were forecasting a future that simply needed time and smaller circuits to arrive. Preston Tucker's vision for safer night driving took shape in 1948 when the Tucker 48 rolled out with a feature that seemed almost uncanny: a third centrally mounted headlight that swiveled with the steering wheel. The Cyclops could pivot up to 30 degrees, casting light into corners as the driver turned, years before anyone spoke of adaptive headlights. Tucker's engineers linked the headlamp to the steering column with a worm gear actuator, making every curve ahead visible before the car arrived. But the Cyclops ran straight into a wall of regulation. State after state, following the Uniform Vehicle Code, enforced strict 2 headlamp rules with no room for exceptions. In Michigan, where Tucker's factory stood, transportation officials declared the third lamp illegal. citing the code's definition of symmetrical pairs only. Tucker's team faced an impossible task, petitioning every state for a variance, a bureaucratic maze no fledgling automaker could navigate. Production halted. The company folded within a year, and the Cyclops vanished into legend. Yet the idea refused to die. Today's adaptive LED headlights, able to swivel and illuminate bends automatically, echo Tucker's original solution, proof that sometimes the only thing wrong with a great idea is its timing. Citroen's DS, launched in 1955, floated on pressurized nitrogen spheres at each wheel, with a hydraulic pump pushing up to 220 bar. The car's self-leveling suspension let drivers glide over rough roads and adjust ride height on command. For over 1 million owners, the comfort was revolutionary. Yet the system's complexity bred anxiety. Mechanics faced high-pressure lines and seals prone to leaks, while sphere failures sent owners searching for rare expertise. The promise of smooth travel often came with the reality of daunting upkeep and a reputation for fragility. By 1987, Honda's Prelude introduced a different experiment, four-wheel steering. At low speeds, the rear wheels could turn up to 2 degrees opposite the fronts, shrinking the turning circle for city driving. At speed, they steered with the fronts for stability. The system used a mechanical cam and hydraulic actuator, not electronics. Over 70,000 Preludes featured this setup, but buyers hesitated, wary of the price and future repairs. Both Citroën and Honda proved technology could deliver, and if drivers were willing to trust it. Again and again, the same barriers stand in the way of truly brilliant car features. Price is the first wall. New ideas almost always cost more than drivers expect or want to pay. Durability follows close behind, as early versions face real-world wear, leaky seals, or electronics that just are not ready for prime time. Then there is regulation, with rules that can block even the smartest solutions, whether it is a third headlamp or a camera replacing a mirror. And finally, perception, the sense that something is too strange, too risky, or just not worth the hassle. For every Brooks Walker or Cadillac engineer who saw the future, these 4 hurdles kept innovation in the slow lane, no matter how right the idea was. The cycle repeats, engineers get it right, but the world is not ready. Yet when technology catches up or laws change, yesterday's oddity returns as tomorrow's must-have. The next wave of features would not just tweak old mechanics, they would harness electronics, sensors, and software, setting the stage for a comeback no one could ignore. In 1969, Volkswagen's Type 3 rolled out with a feature that seemed more at home in a laboratory than a family car, Bosch's Digitronic electronic fuel injection. Instead of relying on jets and floats, the system used a manifold pressure sensor, engine speed inputs, and an analog electronic control unit to calculate exactly how much fuel to inject, up to 300 times a second at high revolutions per minute. The promise was real-time mixture control, smoother starts, and lower emissions, all managed by a bundle of sensors and wires. But early adopters faced headaches. Analog electronic control units drifted out of tune with heat or age, and mechanics often blamed mysterious sensor failures for problems that were hard to diagnose. Despite these hurdles, around 45,000 VW Type 3 cars left the factory with Digitronic that year, quietly previewing the digital engine management that would soon sweep the industry. The same logic, sensor, electronic control unit, injector now underpins every modern car, proving that Bosch's engineers were not guessing at the future. They were building it, one pulse at a time. In 1980, Aston Martin's Lagonda stunned the world with a dashboard straight out of science fiction, a glowing CRT screen replacing every dial and needle. It promised drivers a digital readout of speed, RPM, and even diagnostics, all refreshed in real time. But the future had a fragile side. Owners soon discovered that the CRT clusters were prone to flickering, dimming, or failing outright, with repairs that could take weeks and cost thousands. 8 years later, Oldsmobile offered a head-up display in the Cutlass Supreme, projecting speed and warning lights onto a glass combiner in the driver's line of sight. The idea was clever, but the projector struggled against sunlight, and many drivers found the display washed out by day. Fewer than 3,000 cars left the factory with the option. Today, crisp LCD clusters and bright head-up displays are everywhere, proof that both teams saw what was coming. Their ambition outpaced the hardware, but the dream of clear, customizable data delivery behind the wheel never faded. In 1971, Chrysler and Bendix teamed up to offer something almost no one had seen before: electronic anti-lock brakes on the Imperial sedan. Wheel speed sensors and a central modulator worked together, pulsing hydraulic pressure up to 100 times per second to keep the wheels from locking under hard braking. Only about 500 cars ever received the Sure Brake retrofit, and most drivers saw it as an expensive curiosity. But the principle proved unshakable. 4 decades later, a federal safety rule, FMVSS 126, made anti-lock brakes and their sensor-driven logic a requirement on nearly every new car. What started as an engineer's experiment became the law of the road, closing the loop between vision and reality. Innovation rarely gets a hero's welcome. Today, features once dismissed as unnecessary define automotive safety and comfort, proving that timing can overshadow genius. But history shows true progress often waits for the world to catch up. What future classics are we doubting now?